We're up to mitzvah number 54, found in Parshas Mishpatim. It's a mitzvahs aseh again, which is on Beis Din, found in Shemais Chaf Aleph Pasuk Lamed Zayin, Shemais 25th chapter, verse 37. It says, Ki yignoiv ish, if a man steals. So now, this is a mitzvah on Beis Din to judge cases. Now, someone mentioned, this is not the Aveira, this is not the sin or the commandment not to steal. This is where someone just does steal. He did the Aveira, he stole. So it's a mitzvah for Beis Din to judge cases of a thief who takes something of value from another person's house or anything belonging to them when the guy does not know about the incident. But now, let's call it, that would be like an armed robber, right? He goes in, let's know, we're not talking about a ganef, this is where he's sneaking around, okay? That would be a gazlan, but that's a separate thing we'll talk about later. So this guy is a sneak. He's not an armed robber. It's a geneva. What's the rule? The rule is we say he pays what we call kefil. When he gets caught, you pay double. So you have to repay twice. Either you give back the original with another amount, a second value of it, or you have to pay twice what was stolen. Let's say, Say he ate it, it's gone, so he's got to pay.
No, it's not like kinas.
It is a kinas. The second one is a kinas. It's a penalty. It's a fine. So now, Beis Din is responsible to punish even children who steal. Juvenile. Why? In order to prevent them from
stealing later.
Yeah, picking it up a habit. Because we know that when a person gets into a habit, it's hard to break that habit. Now, if a person steals a sheep or an ox, and if he slaughters it or if he sells it, he has to pay 4 for a sheep. Each sheep that he stole, he has to pay 4 times it. We call that arba, 4 times the amount, and 5 ox for each ox that he stole. And he slaughtered it or he sold it. And that's it's one thing that you steal it, but then you try to make some kind of a benefit or profit off it, so then you get really punished. Now, what's the difference between the 4 and the 5? Well, we'll get into that soon. But now, now we know that let's say a guy steals and he can't pay it back. He doesn't have the money to pay it back. What happens to that person? We've already learned that before, that the person is sold into slavery. Now that mitzvah is only when we have, nowadays we could still make him pay for stealing, but the mitzvah of putting it sold as a slave is only when we have the mitzvah of, we call it yovel, where he can, shemitah and yovel, huh? Yeah, well, it's really yovel when he's going to be freed for getting out when it's the 50th year. Now, included in this mitzvah is a responsibility also for Beis Din to judge the cases involving kidnapping, which we mentioned before, in that case, it's going to be that the person's going to be killed. He'll be sentenced to death. So each of these mitzvahs, anything to do with geneva, the mitzvah of stealing property, stealing people, that's all included in this mitzvah. Now, going back to that thing we said, there's a difference between a sheep and an ox. If a person steals a sheep and slaughters it or he sells it, he pays 4 times the amount. If he was an ox, he pays 5 times the amount. Why? So we learn out like this. When a person steals, you might say to yourself, bottom line is, when a person steals a sheep, how do you steal a sheep?
I'll carry it.
You have to carry it. You pick it up, you carry it out.
It go with you.
Yeah, it's not going to walk away with you. However, a cow, you could kind of pull it on a leash, right? Because we learned that in the first Mishnah in Bava Metzia. You put it on a leash and you lead it along. but a sheep's not going to go by being with a leash. It doesn't go. So you have to pick it up and carry it out. So once the person has to humiliate themselves a little bit, degrade, lower themselves to effort to steal it, so they already had a little bit of the embarrassment.
Not really.
Not really?
Yeah, what do you mean embarrassment?
No,
the guy's
because-
running to get his
He ain't embarrassed.
steak,
to steal
sheep
it, so-
steak. Of course
so
he's
he-
not embarrassed.
He ain't embarrassed when he's
The truth, it's a very good question. That is a very good question. And we learn out a lesson
He's
from
in the
this.
lamb chops.
Very
He's not
good,
gonna be
very good.
embarrassed.
We learn out a lesson that even when a person is committing and is violating a Torah, Hashem's commandment, when he still has some kind of lowering his dignity, it's humiliating a little bit to have to carry something. If you had to carry a sheep through the shul, would you feel a little bit embarrassed? Definitely. Now, if you could just lead it through, it wouldn't bother you so much. You were a little humiliated. So even when a person does an Aveira, Hashem Hashem writes in the Torah that we are still concerned for a person's dignity, and for that, the person was humiliated a little bit. It's a little embarrassing. That humiliation, even though he was doing it to steal, bottom line is he pays less than somebody who gets to do it without having to humiliate himself. A little bit and we learn out from there that a person we have to guard the dignity of every person. The Torah is concerned about their dignity. Now, the Torah also explains why is it that it's so much harsher towards, we call it a ganav, a person who steals sneaking, as opposed to an armed robber, which is a gazlan, carries around a weapon. And he does it publicly. So why is it the Torah is so much harsher with the ganav, the hidden thief, than the person who goes around and steals open? That goes around.
Because he does it in the middle of the night, so nobody sees him.
And therefore
Sneaking
what?
around behind everyone's
Therefore,
back.
nobody sees him. So they're more upset at him. Because if you do it in the daytime, people are going to see you and they're going to know.
Okay, but the Gemara says a different reason.
That the reason why he did that is he looked around to see if nobody was there, but he didn't look around to see how
You've got to see if
Hashem wasn't there.
Hashem was there. That's right. The bottom line is that a person who steals in secret, he thinks that nobody, including Hashem, sees him. Right? He wants to make sure. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about Hashem. He's only care about the people. Right? He goes, he steals, he's worried, what are people going to say? A guy just doesn't care.
Don't worry about Hashem.
He's not worried about Hashem, and he's not worried about people. That's the guy who goes around with the gun. He doesn't care what people think of him. He doesn't care what Hashem thinks of him. But a guy who says, I'm more worried about people than Hashem,
No.
That's wrong.
yeah, that's what the Torah says. The Torah says that a ganav who's more concerned about the way people see him
And not Hashem.
than the way Hashem views him, that person is judged more harshly, and he pays kefil. He pays 4 and 5, depending on if it's a sheep or an ox. But a person who steals publicly, he just pays. He doesn't have the same dinim as a ganav.